for this. But anyway,
Olympic athlete.
we get the
Suspicious Clives.
Can call me Dawn.
I don't think that's right.
Collar, you.
The Sunday Scaries as we prepare for a week and potential. Suggestions possible. Fit the category. To follow our socials and join our Discord. Dope. Save. Live chat replay. Save. Dope. Dope. Oh my god. Yikers. Oh, alright. Here we go. Oh. Can I go to the channel, please? Can I go watch this? Can I go to the channel, please? Here we are. Kick. YouTube. Alright, let's do this. Alright, let's see what. Got it. The ghost games. I'm just trying to think of what games I can play while we hang out. Demonologist. What was the last update?
Hey.
Next 15th. Last update.
Hey, can you talk?
Okay. Have that. Oh, I see him here. scares us. Fear therapy. Okay, okay. Doesn't look awful. Blood chaser. Cold. That's within inside the back rooms. Escape room. It's awful. Sign of silence. Looks awful. I feel like I'm gonna have to play like the mortuary assistant and stuff like that to even. Fucking do a VR scary game. No way, dude. If it hits, you know what? If we hit our follower goal, I will do a VR scary game. Until then, no fucking chance. What game should I get? I'm not sure it's just demonology, but awful. Mortuary assistant. Do I do it? Do I do the mortuary assistant? Do I do it? And they're laughing? I'm gonna add it to the wish list. We're gonna talk about it. Because that put what little hair I have on my arm from shaving them standing. Supernatural. Winter's fun. The game called Bigfoot. The original Five Nights at Freddy's. Absolutely not. Labyrinthine? Huh, I have that game already. I guess I don't remember playing it. pictures anthologies. Conrad Stinson's Paranormal Part 1. That's about. Let's click on it.
Something is going on here.
Shit. So the accent. Damn, it's got hella recent updates. The release it is not part of it. Okay, cool. It's on Discord. Eh. Wow, I have to scroll all the way back down. Future Lab, Backroom Society, Day at Night. I have the Dark Exorcism. Dread Out. Alright, hold on. I'm gonna look at this. Sherlock Holmes. Inlo. Look at this Sherlock Holmes The Awakened. See what this is like. I don't know why. Do you have audio now? Do you have audio now, Sorgs? I hear you, but not Sherlock. Still? Okay. Play this again. Actually, we'll play the second one. You don't hear anything, really. Okay, we'll try again. Still nothing? What the fuck, man? So I see it bouncing. Like I see it.
Take it easy now, boys. They'll be dead soon enough.
You hear it now? I hate this.
Do not fight his calling, for he shall end this dreaming world.
I hate it. I had it hidden, even though it wasn't hidden. Fuck. All right, we're going back up to the wish list. We're gonna just get the mortuary assistant. Actually, what is on my list? Oh yeah, dude, remove that. That is never gonna be good. Cult of Lamb is only $16. I have yet to beat it. Bryce says that to me.
I know it's late, but we just got 3 new cadavers, and no one else can make it in right now. I was hoping you could come in and take care of them.
I suffer no bondage but this rotting, weak, pathetic corpse. Look at me!
God has abandoned you.
At this pitiful flesh I am service to. But this body is no longer mine. I have my promise.
Jump scare. Oh. Yeah, okay, Outlast 2, you said? Oh, the Outlast. Outlast Trials just came out. Let's go see what that's about.
You'll be reborn. For what I want to create, I need somebody who's not going to be missed when they vanish. I need somebody who knows they deserve to suffer. I need somebody who can withstand anything. I need a nobody. But what I got was you. And when I see what you are capable of, I think you might be the one that shows this miserable world what freedom really means. You'll be
to create constant.
Sorry for the shaking. You don't hear me. You should hear me. Haven't moved. How big is this game? 33 gigabytes. Holy piss. That is quite the game. All right, what to do in the meantime? Because it's gonna take 30 minutes. Ooh, excuse me. What do I do for 30 minutes while this game downloads? I really need to upgrade my PC, but I'll wait till I get a couple of design checks. Stop writing on 2.5. Fucking, I need to just upgrade all my stuff to SSDs. You know what? While I wait, we'll jump into some Overwatch. Not really scary, but it'll kill some time. Noise. I'm noising your noise. Overwatch anxiety is scary. Oh, it might not even load. Apparently black screening. Yo. Be strong. I'm gonna watch the Quest Watch. Update. Enter a game. I love this. For me.
Traveling to Havana.
To show her head control. Oh my god, what the fuck? Specking? I'm spectating. I'm leaving this. 12 hogs. One hole, you know what it is. Or not. 12 hooks, one hole. I do love an escape room. I know I'm on full cam. I'll join the escape room, come on. I guess. Okay. That's not a real thing. Doing 20 minutes. What the fuck am I supposed to do? Hello? What am I supposed to GA to?
Boosting your damage. Powerful. Feeling more powerful? I feel powerful.
What the fuck am I supposed to GA to?
Basket has arrived.
Excuse me, what the fuck am I supposed to GA to? Can't fucking GA. The fuck? Yeah, fuck this. I thought I was GA into places.
Don't worry, I'll be right behind you. You call it?
Crouch is disabled.
Goodbye.
Supposed to fucking.
I'm Dinah Zeiter.
Fuck. Haha, I'm an idiot. Never mind. Fuck this. It's so weird not being able to GA. Yeah, it's so weird not being able to GA. Give no cooldown. All right, bet. fucking way I just got put to sleep. Fucking battle mercy. See ya. I'm a booping king. I'm a booping king. Jesus. The lag here is crazy. Ah, shit. This is cats. That shit.
My throne is where I say it is.
I did, but
Match complete.
I felt like I crushed it.
Play of the game.
I did not crush it. That was fair. Oh man, Scepter. Oh, that would have been huge. Fuck. Fuck, I got booped. Eat that from you. That for you, Ash. My god. The chaos and oh my fucking lord. It's just gun game. You have to just get through all the heroes. Damn it. Chaos that ensues in this game is fucking insane. And I'm leading this game too. No. This bitch. Okay, cool. I was about to say she just got me. Shit, I'm Life Weaver. Let's go.
Match complete. First place. Play of the game.
Give me that. Sweaty as shit from that. Oh no. My computer can't handle this. And a game at the same time. Okay, so you know what? We'll just stream instead. I mean, stream. We'll just do some artwork instead. We're just gonna go to just chatting, which I think I'm still in. I am face cam. We're gonna do a little bit of drawing. Yes, an art stream. I don't know how to get my iPad to connect to my fucking, or else I would let y'all draw with me. But I'll just keep you informed as I go. All right, I have to go get my pencil. I'll be right back. Kind of an art stream. I can't really show you my iPad, but to show you I don't know how to share my fucking, iPad. But I am starting a non-for-profit / apparel company, and this is the first design. So actually, anyone that follows today will get this exclusive drop from the merch line. Save. New title. I'll change it back to the fucking Sunday Scaries once Outlast is done. Which is in 16 minutes, so I got a lot of fucking drawing to do. Maybe some tunes. Bet. Spotify. Open. Some jammings. Jam a little. Listen to a podcast called Scared to Death.
Scared to Death is explicit in every way. Please take care while listening.
Whether thou art a ghost that hath come from the earth, or a phantom of night that hath no home, or one that lieth dead in the desert, or a ghost unburied, or a demon, or a ghoul, whatever thou be until thou art removed, thou shalt find here no water to drink. Thou shalt not stretch forth thy hand to our own. Into our house enter thou not. Through our fence break through thou not. We are protected, though we may be frightened. Our life you may not steal, though we may be scared to death.
Welcome to the
Y'all hear it?
200th episode of Scared to Death, Creeps, Peepers, Roberts, and Annabelles. I'm Dan.
And I'm still Lindsay.
You're still Lindsay, and we have such a big episode for you today. Also, happy Independence Day. Hope our American listeners get to celebrate the 4th of July.
Fireworks, hot dogs, hamburgers, watermelon. If you're lucky, if you're in my household, you're getting my very famous Rice Krispie treats made with the 4th of July Rice Krispies.
I finally remembered when an episode comes out that it comes out on a holiday. I always forget the holidays.
Oh, don't worry. I wrote it down this time.
Good job. Good job. I'm going to be telling, since we're doing a bigger episode, going to be telling 3 stories today.
Woo-hoo!
Lindsay will have another 2, and you can play a drinking game along with this one if you want. We'll chat a little at the end like we do in our Patreon bonus episodes as well, and have a little cake, celebrate the ride here, reflect on this Scared to Death journey. And in honor of hitting 200 episodes, we are doing 20% off on all Scared to Death merches.
Merches. All the merches.
All the merches between now and July 9th.
Nice.
And then, do you want me to explain the drinking game really quick?
Yeah, and just if you are new-ish to the show, if you haven't listened to us talk for 200 episodes, if you go back to the 100th episode, we did this there as well.
Yeah.
And so this is just a little...
So my mic just doesn't pick me up.
Update to that. So yeah,
It's probably because of my noise gate. I'm too far away from it.
With some updated lingo. So real simple. The rules would be drink every time Lindsay says, get the fuck out. Spoopy. Yikes.
Uh-oh.
Talks about Ohio.
Yeah.
Mentions crystals. Screams. Or pulls the blanket up to her neck. And you can drink every time I mispronounce something.
Oh, that people are going to be wasted in 5 minutes.
Mention Riggins, Idaho. Yeah, you might want to go with beer or wine and not hard liquor.
Or just water.
Or if I make some kind of sex and or masturbation reference or joke.
Seems right.
Drink anytime either one of us say cool, wild, or interesting.
Now, what if I just point to my notebook instead of saying it?
I don't think that counts. Or if we have to start a sentence over again because we get stuck.
That happens.
And then finally, drink if we talk about our dogs.
Oh.
Being busy. Or complain at all about our kids.
Oh. Actually, you know what? I don't think I'm going to complain about the kids. They're being great right now.
They are being great.
Kyler just graduated.
Yeah, big deal. Yeah, Kyler just graduated between last recording and this one, and it was really, really cool. It was a really,
cool.
really fun graduation ceremony.
I don't remember any of them.
I thought I was going to get so sad, but I was just so happy.
Yeah. I was just so proud. A lot of just eyes welling with tears out of just he did it.
He was so pumped. It was fun to see him with his classmates.
He was jacked. Yeah, it was so cute. We'll sob hysterically when we drop him off at college.
Absolutely.
That's going to be the heartbreaker.
I add a dagger to all
the
this?
stories you're telling today?
Yeah, sorry. I'm looking at my bubble water that has just decided to start overflowing all on its own. So that's fun.
That is weird. It's been open for a little while.
Okay. All right. Well, I have 2 spoopy tales for you.
Actually, I'll just design it up real quick and then I'll show y'all.
The titles of my story.
And we decide from there.
One is The Only House on the Block.
All right.
And that story, I'm just going to say now as a forewarning, has a true crime element to it that is, I'm not going to get into a lot of graphic detail, but it's a little bit gnarly. And then my second story is entitled,
Fair.
Who Is It?
Interesting.
Wild.
Okay. For my 3, like I mentioned last week,
I use
about the Doll of Shadows.
Oh, yeah.
Adobe Fresco as a drawing technique.
Doll lore, supposed encounter story with this very creepy doll. For my second story, a quick one about the Bloodtown Forest, aka the Blood Forest, a patch of haunted woods just outside the little town of Lancaster, Massachusetts. Some locals looked into the legends and ended up scaring the hell out of themselves. And then finally, we'll look into another story associated with Ed and Lorraine Warren, Southern California's Moffat family haunting, possible demonic activity surrounding the Moffat family, where many people seem to have witnessed a lot of very hard to rationally explain occurrences. Okay, you socked up, ready to go?
Bruh, I'm totally socked up. Check out these gnomes.
The 4th of July colors.
They're ready to party.
Yeah. All right. Well, bit of creepy lore, and then we'll just jump into this first encounter claim.
Okay.
Tony Spira, son-in-law of the late Ed and Lorraine Warren, curator and director of the Warren's Occult Museum and the co-director of the New England Society for Psychic Research, says of the Doll of Shadows, it's a doll made to curse other individuals. It was found in an antique shop over 25 years ago. A young couple in their 20s went into an antique shop, and in the back of the store was this doll. They didn't know what it was at the time. They thought it was just an antique, and they purchased it. It has a human tooth coming out of its mouth.
Ew.
There are bird feathers for hair. Human and animal bones and nails make up its body.
What the heck?
Fuck.
Tony adds it was made specifically to harm people through incantations and rituals and curses. Someone knowledgeable in the darker aspects of the occult would take a photograph of the doll and print it out. On the back of the photo, they would write down their curse, then mail it to the intended victim. And if the recipient of the curse opened the mail, saw the picture, the doll would now soon show up in the victim's dreams. They would have nightmares so terrifying that the person's heart might stop beating. Tony has kept the doll trapped inside a glass case that has been blessed at the Occult Museum, supposedly for the safety of the general public. Allegedly,
Is Nick in town?
the doll is so powerful that if it were ever destroyed, the spirits that were summoned during its creation will follow after those involved in the doll's destruction, bringing misfortune, fear, and death. Based on what I've read online about the doll, it doesn't seem like you have to take any photos of this thing to experience the doll's awful effects. The night after the young couple brought the doll home from the antique shop, they had nightmares involving the doll terrorizing them. When they woke up, they were covered in scratches. The second night, the same thing happened again, but this time there weren't just scratches, there were some claws, like claw marks. After that, they decided to call the Warrens to take over the doll. The Warrens were eventually able to ascertain that a specialist in occult items, a New England broker in purchasing and selling strange and ancient
Nice.
things, sold the doll.
So you're going to
some collectors,
Michigan?
the ones who
Now that you leave the state once, you're fucking going crazy.
at the antique shop just to get rid of it.
Have fun.
The collectors claimed that the doll affected
Be
them from
safe.
the first day they walked through the door of their house with it. One anonymous online poster claims to have been one of the people who dropped the doll off at the antique shop over 25 years ago. Here is their story. Time now for the tale of the Doll of Shadows. We were young and stupid and fooling around with things we should have left alone. We'd passed by the little shop downtown on several occasions and had stopped in once before to talk to the owner out of curiosity, after seeing a little window display for cursed and haunted artifacts and other forbidden items of the occult. We laughed about it. We assumed the owner was going to be off the walls crazy, but he wasn't at all. He was very self-aware and understood how many would perceive his sign and shop in general. He was well-dressed, well-spoken, and had a very calm and pleasant demeanor. He reminded us of a well-liked college professor or a doctor with a good bedside manner. I don't remember everything he said, but the gist of it was that there are many things we now understand and know about the world thanks to accumulated human knowledge and scientific discovery, but there were still many other things we don't understand, magical things. Yes, much of what was considered magic in the past was superstition and folklore, but not everything. Some of it was real magic, and he tried to collect a bit of that. When I asked him why he would turn around and sell items like that, he said they weren't always his to keep. They had their own lives. He would study them, catalog them, but then oftentimes he would sell them for others to study and catalog or whatever if that's what it felt like he was supposed to do. He also said that sometimes he needed to be rid of certain items. If he didn't get rid of them, they would terrorize him, wear him down, possibly even kill him. We thought he was joking about that, but he didn't laugh. He said that all he could do was learn as much about
This is
the subject
crazy.
as possible so he could educate whoever took it from him and maybe help save them from harm. We asked him if he currently had any items he was afraid of, and he immediately pointed at the ugliest doll I've ever seen. A horrible thing made mostly of bones and feathers. The Doll of Shadows. He shared the legend that it was an object designed to bring misfortune, that you were to use it as a part of a ritual involving taking a picture of the doll, writing the cursed victim's name on the back of the photo, and sending it to them. The doll would bring the victim nightmares, terrible nightmares, that would eventually lead to them dying from terror in their sleep. Crazy, right? Like the doll was Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street, mashed up with Chucky from Child's Play or something. He asked us if we wanted to see the doll up close, and we said no thanks. We had to be going.
See.
And that was true. We were meeting a friend for lunch. But also, I didn't want to touch it. I don't know that I really believed him that day, but the doll definitely creeped me out. Worse than that, it scared me a bit. Cut to 6 months later. In that span of time, my girlfriend's ex tried to completely ruin our lives. I'd met her weeks after they'd broken up, but he refused to believe that. He was convinced that she had cheated on him with me. This guy was obsessed with her, total stalker vibes. Months after they'd broken up, right after we moved in together, which was around the time we saw the doll for the first time, he stopped by our place on a couple occasions, and we had some very ugly exchanges. After the last one, we called the police. And then an onslaught of much sneakier and damaging harassment began. He'd printed out some nude photos of my girlfriend he'd taken when they were together and posted them all around our neighborhood, including on our front door. Some anonymous callers also spoke to the police on numerous occasions, accusing me of being a pedophile. They even called the high school I taught at.
Jesus.
I could have lost my job, my career, and we knew it was him. We also knew it would be real hard to completely prove that in court, or at least prove it before he completely destroyed us. He wanted to ruin us. And eventually, I thought of that doll. We were at our wits' end. It truly felt like we were going crazy. We were fighting a lot. I was worried I couldn't take much more. I didn't want to let that psycho win. I didn't want to leave my girlfriend to fend for herself against him, but also, I wasn't the one who brought this guy into our lives, and I didn't want him to completely destroy my life. After another fight, I said we should go get that evil doll and curse that asshole. And she said, yeah, why not? I didn't actually think it would work, but
Why
I thought it would be
not?
fun to try.
It's
Maybe
fucking
freak
real
him
easy.
out a
Why
bit too.
not?
We went back to that store the next morning. The owner explained the ritual to us and sold us the doll. I won't share it here, not after what happened.
Piece of shit, dog.
Long story short, it fucking worked. I'm not kidding. We killed him. Or it did. But we pointed it at him. We took the photo, wrote his name on the back, performed the ritual, sent it, and 5 days later, he was dead.
Holy shit.
My girlfriend reached out to an old mutual friend of theirs a few days after that and was told he had died in his sleep of a heart attack. He was 31. Their old friend said that he saw her ex the day before he died. He was covered in scratches and convinced that some doll from his dreams was trying to kill him, some doll someone had sent him a photo of. Their friend felt terrible for not trying to get an involuntary psychiatric hold placed on him. He thought her ex had some kind of psychotic break, and maybe he had. One that we
The
pushed him
fuck?
into.
This is awful.
After that, while I'm not going to lie, we were glad, so glad to no longer be horribly harassed by him, we also felt guilty. We did a ritual designed to curse and kill whoever is tormenting you, and it actually worked, and we killed him. We thought about taking the doll
Piece of
back to the
shit,
store
dog.
immediately, but we didn't want him finding out about what we had done. We didn't think he would call the police. We were pretty certain he wouldn't, actually, but we were ashamed. Even though he was the one who told us what it would do, and he did sell it to us, we were still ashamed. And now that we understood its power, we didn't want more people dying. So we decided to store the doll away where no one else could find and use it. We put it in a box, taped it shut, and then tossed it up into the attic. And well, the doll of shadows really didn't seem to like that. That night, it showed up in our dreams. Our dreams were very similar. We broke up not long after this, and I don't completely remember all the exact details of hers, so I'll just share mine.
Maybe it's because you guys
I
killed
thought
a man
I'd woken
together.
up upon hearing noises from the attic. I turned over in bed to ask my girlfriend if she heard it too, but she wasn't there. I called out for her. Didn't get an answer. Then I heard another noise from the attic, a heavy thud that shook the house just a bit, and then a rhythmic creaking. I heard what sounded like a small animal, maybe a raccoon, moving around up there. I got up, turned on the
Maybe it's
light,
because y'all killed somebody.
continued to call out for my girlfriend, who continued to not answer my cries. I walked all around the house looking for her, turning on more and more lights. She wasn't anywhere in the house. The entire time I looked, I continued to hear that rhythmic creaking coming from the attic and the sound of a small animal moving about. I looked in the garage, found her car still there. She hadn't driven anywhere. Found her purse hanging in its place, found her wallet with her ID inside. So where was she? Still hearing the creaking, I finally realized in my dream what I'm sure you knew the whole time. The attic. She must be in the attic. So I pulled down the attic ladder. Without bothering to grab a flashlight, I headed up into the darkness. The creaking got louder and louder as I did so. At the far end of the attic from the entrance, I could see a large shape swinging back and forth. The sound of that, the source of that rhythmic creaking. I grabbed the string for the light, pulled it, and screamed. The shape was my girlfriend, rope around her neck, hanging dead from a rafter. She'd hanged herself. She'd hanged herself from one of two nooses, tied a few feet apart on the same rafter, while her chair was knocked over. A second chair sat upright under the unused noose. She was also covered in bloody scratches, and her face, I'll never forget that face, her mouth opened wide like she died while screaming, a silent scream that I'd never heard. She had died absolutely terrified. And then I heard movement behind me. The ladder entrance was retracting. I turned to head back towards the ladder to stop it and get down, but it was too late. A small shape scurried past me, headed back towards my now dead girlfriend. It was the
Yeah,
dark
dog,
shadows,
you're gonna
it was the
fucking
shiny
die.
animal sounds I'd been
You're
hearing.
gonna fucking die.
And now, right after staring at me, it climbed up the wall, across the ceiling like a spider, and it smashed out the light. Then it jumped on me, its bony hands and sharp claw-like fingers, scratching and slashing and tearing at my flesh. I fought it as best as I could while I screamed in fear and pain, and then the evil little thing suddenly grew. It was now a monster the size of a large man, and it started to drag me across the floor. I was powerless against it. It dragged me over to that second chair. It lifted me up, placed my neck in the noose. My feet felt for the chair, and then it let go and just let me stand there in the darkness. I could feel it watching me. I could feel it and smell its hot, putrid breath. Just a few feet away, I could hear it breathe, a wet, rotten sound, and then it would roar while kicking the chair out from under me. I would feel my neck break. I'd feel the panic of being unable to breathe, and then I would wake up sucking in a giant breath of air covered in sweat. That happened 3 nights in a row. After the first night, I was ready to give that doll back. My girlfriend was more reluctant. I think she wanted to believe we were just having nightmares because we felt guilty. I think she also wanted to prove that the doll couldn't actually kill anybody. But after 3 nights, after we both woke up with some scratches, she was utterly terrified and truly afraid that she was going to die. And I was at a point where I was going to take that thing back whether she wanted me to or not. The owner was not shocked when we told him what had happened. And we told him everything. It felt good to get it off our chests. He was a little surprised by the scratches. I believe he smirked and said, "I'll be damned. It's really true." And that was that. We didn't even try and sell it back. We just left it with him. He took it out of the box before we departed. I wanted to scream when I saw it. I immediately felt sick.
Outlast is done downloading.
We broke up a few weeks later. The strain of the terribleness of what we'd been involved in was just too much. And even though her nightmares stopped, or at least she told me they did, she never really recovered. I haven't looked around online to see how she's doing in years. We don't share the same friends. I'm afraid to poke around. I'm worried I'll
You're
find
the same
out
friends,
what
but y'all
did
dated for so
what
long
did in my
and you
nightmares.
murdered somebody.
And I'm worried enough about my own life that I refuse to sleep in any house that has an attic ever since I left that one.
My God.
Some nightmare.
Yeah. I wonder if you could get in trouble for that.
Yeah.
Because you can't like prove that.
Curses aren't illegal.
Well, maybe they should be. That's creepy as shit.
Legal.
I was getting confused for a second because you said that they broke up, but then you said that she hung herself, and I was like, wait, I thought they broke up. Wait, is this a dream? Is this real? Is this happening?
Oh yeah, he was saying they had nightmares, shared nightmares
Yeah.
before they broke up. Yeah.
I lost track. I was too scared of the creepy ass doll with the weird human tooth.
I know. I have a few pictures.
I don't want to see it.
This first one, yeah, just a picture of the Doll of Shadows from the Warrens Occult Museum.
God damn, that thing is fucking creepy. Oh my God. Also, what is that other thing?
I know that like mannequin behind it. It's like a bridal gown or something.
God, that thing is so scary.
And then this next one, a close-up shot of the Doll of Shadows' face.
Oh, I don't think so. Why? Why?
You see little human tooth. You can see little nails coming out of its hand. The bird feathers around its head. Weird little eyes.
That thing is kind of fucking weird.
Oh, it's so uncomfortable.
I know its eyes feel real. And then one more pic of this monster.
God bless America.
Yeah, it's a really, really.
It's really ugly.
And it's feathers for hair?
Mm-hmm. Bird feathers for hair.
Yeah.
Stop looking at it. It's gonna like bore into your soul.
Kind of hope it fucking does.
Yeah, so it's out in Connecticut, the Warrens Museum, which I can't remember if it's open right now or not. It hasn't been open much the past few years.
Here it is. This is the doll.
I don't know if it really fully reopened after COVID.
Well, maybe it's better that way.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
Might just be like private showings or something.
My God.
Yeah, it's a really creepy little doll.
Have you ever had the feeling of like needing to give something to somebody, like something that you own, or like have you ever been somewhere like in a gift shop or just any kind of store and been like, oh my God, this person in my life absolutely needs that. And I don't mean like a joke gift, like something like really sort of speaks to you.
Mm-mm.
Oh. Okay.
Anytime I see a llama, I have to pick it up for
Kate.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. But like,
and I've done that with you in the past. Like we've had like little like gifts. It's been a while, like themes, but never, never just like randomly drawn to some item where I have to and then have to give it to somebody.
I wonder what that is because that does happen to me regularly.
Yeah.
Like, And it's just like little things in life where it could be a card, it could be a small trinket. Sometimes it's something more significant where I just see something and I'm like, oh my God, like I don't know how to explain like this it's not a voice in my head. You know, it's not
Yeah.
like but it's like a very strong.
Is it just a compulsion?
Maybe, but sometimes it's something that I already like.
Does this man sound like he's talking in like a
where maybe it's
1980s
a closet
radio?
clean out, or
Maybe that's the
I'm
point.
like, digging for something and then I find something else and I'm like, oh my God, so and so needs to have that. It doesn't feel of my body or of my mind. It feels like a different sort of connection to something that I know that I need to like rid myself of
Yeah.
or bring to the forefront for somebody else. Huh. I don't know. When you said that, it just really stuck with me.
It's wild.
It's cool. And
Interesting. Drink.
I did write down also. I thought, I mean, it's not funny, but funny. It's like these people are being literally scared to death.
Yeah.
This is like our theme story.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
Good catch there.
Okay, and then lastly, just on a practical side with the psycho ex-boyfriend.
Yes.
I don't know the era in which this happened.
Yeah, they don't say.
But I'm like, you guys, get cameras. Like, if this guy, because they were like, oh, we couldn't prove it. I'm like, bullshit. You could prove that you were being stalked by somebody and that they were doing these things. Photos, where were the photos printed? Like, I mean, you can trace things. And when it comes to stuff like this, and I just want to say this, like, having lived through domestic abuse and like these kinds of things, it is so important that you document these things happening. Like, if you find yourself currently in a situation where you're
Trigger warning. Sorry, trigger warning.
the thing that you have to do, it is so very important, is to keep track of it. And every time something happens, you go to the police because God forbid it escalates to the next level where there is contact. Now there's a record. It's really so important. It's so important.
I can see with this level of sneakiness, like the online stuff, though, this frustration where it's like, yes, we can go to the authorities, but it's going to take a while. Who knows how long in the court process. Meanwhile, if he's like slandering us with anonymous phone calls and posting things online, you can, but the damage is still done.
I'm not saying it's not, but my point is that if you are consistently documenting it, on whether you're writing it down in your phone on a piece of paper and also alerting the authorities, the fear, the concern is that these behaviors tend to escalate.
Oh, totally.
And then that
person
is going to physically harm you and or kill you.
Yeah.
And so that is the worst case outcome. However, even if that ends up being the outcome, well, now there's this track record, and then that person could be prosecuted.
Oh,
together.
Absolutely. I still see their incentive for doing what they did, though.
Oh, I'm not saying there wasn't a reason to do it. I'm like, but there was also other things that you should have been doing alongside that of like, and like telling your friends and like letting it get back to because the ex-girlfriend was still friends with the ex-boyfriend's friends. Like there was still some crossover. It's like, let him know that you know what's going on.
Totally.
And then the current boyfriend, it's like, yeah, you have to go to the principal of the school and be like, hey, we're in this really ugly situation.
Yep.
There's so much that you need to do.
And maybe he did.
Maybe he did.
Yeah.
I just was really mad at them for not setting up cameras. You guys. Oh, and then I felt my own guilt because as a teenager, I did some naughty things.
Oh boy. You ready to head to Massachusetts, learn about a creepy forest now, or do you have more Doll of Shadows?
You're headed to Massachusetts soon.
I am.
We are headed there too.
Yeah. Okay, so a little bit of setup, and then we are in Bloodtown Forest, aka Blood Forest, just outside the little town of Lancaster, Massachusetts, has long been rumored to be haunted.
Blood Forest?
Mm-hmm. Disembodied screams have claimed to have been heard for many decades, or by many for decades. Screams said to be heard both day and night. Apparitions have been sighted at all hours of the day, and one couple were reportedly killed there while camping in mysterious circumstances. 125 acres of land were donated in 1946 by Arthur W. Blood. This, added to some land that the town already owned, brought the amount to 150
Sketching
acres,
is so easy.
making up the original
A good idea.
Bloodtown Forest. The city was able to purchase a lot more land in subsequent years, and now the forest has approximately 600 acres today. The official name for this nature reserve is the Lancaster Town Forest, but many know it as either Bloodtown Forest or simply as Blood Forest. According to some local rumors,
Here's what we've got so far.
An unstable serial killer who once hunted people on his land, and when he killed them, he'd hang their bodies from the trees.
Ew.
Urban legend? Possibly, if not probably. Historical records certainly do not support these claims. However, numerous
Stream,
people have
catch
claimed
up
to
to
see what
it.
appears to be phantom and mutilated bodies hanging from branches. Here
Oh, you
is a
guys
short
kind of
account
can
what
see it.
someone and 2 of their friends said they experienced in this eerie nature preserve roughly 50 years ago. Time now for the tale of the Blood Forest. I went there in the early 1970s with 2 friends. We were all in our late teens. It was late in the afternoon when we arrived, several hours before sunset. We were feeling brave, just not brave enough to head into the woods at night. We weren't actually expecting to experience anything, just hoping maybe we'd get a little lucky, or perhaps a little unlucky. We'd been hearing the rumors about screams and sights from others around town ever since we were little kids. We'd all grown up in the Lancaster area, and now we finally wanted to see for ourselves if there was anything to it. It was a particularly hot day, and the birds were especially talkative. There were a lot of them, too. Dozens and dozens lined the branches of so many of the trees, but only at the edge of the forest. A little ways in, the forest quickly fell silent, eerily silent. No more birds. A little breeze we'd felt when we first walked in was gone, too. And no rustling of any leaves. No bugs either, not even a grasshopper. I normally wouldn't have even noticed something like that, but the strange quiet got to me. And once I didn't notice the birds or the wind, I started really paying attention to what I could hear and see. I started looking for other signs of the forest. Looking and sounding like a forest.
Hold on.
All we could hear were the twigs and leaves crunching underneath our feet. It was like all of a sudden we were the only living creatures around. And as we made it further,
That's why it's a little hard to
think that the rumors had really gotten my mind racing when I looked up in a tree and swore I saw some blood. There was definitely something dripping from one of the branches, and it didn't look like sap. It looked red, and it wasn't nearly as thick as tree sap. I looked over at my friends, and it was clear they hadn't noticed it. I shook my head and took a deep breath. I looked down to the ground and then back up to where the blood was, and now it was gone. Since none of my friends seemed to have noticed, I didn't say anything about it. I was convinced I was just seeing things affected by the heat. It really was a scorcher that day, and all the stories I'd heard. I decided I'd wait to see if I saw something else before I went and freaked everyone out. A few minutes later, as we reached a more dense part of the forest, I began to hear muffled voices talking around me. I realized we were in the area now of the old home of Mr. Blood. I looked around to try and spot some hikers or something, but saw no source for the voices. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but there were 2 or 3 distinct voices, clearly in a conversation. Now I had to tell my friends. I turned to them and asked if they heard anything. They didn't. When they asked me what I was hearing, I just said, I don't know. It might have just been a car in the distance or something. I didn't want to tell them I'd heard voices and have them think I was more spooked than they were, or have them suddenly say they were hearing voices now too. Power of suggestion and all that. I talked to a girl who was a descendant of Mr. Blood before our visit, and she told me he didn't kill anyone, that all the serial killer talk was nothing more than made-up stories. Urban legends told...
Oh, I'm going to take it to Illustrator.
She said that if there were any ghosts in the forest, they weren't the ghosts of anyone who had been hanged. She thought the spirits were most likely the ghosts of people killed by Native Americans in the 1700s.
But I'm going to take it to Illustrator.
Next. As we went further still into the forest, now I saw a girl standing under a tree. She looked so real that for a second, I thought there actually was a real girl out by herself in the woods.
I can live stream.
She was in full color right in front of me, about 20 yards away, just as solid
from my iPad.
As I were. But when I noticed how she was dressed, I knew I was looking at a ghost. She was wearing pilgrim clothing. I grabbed the sleeve of one of my friends, pulled her around to ask her if she saw her too, but in that split second, the girl vanished. I was starting to think I was going crazy, but then the friend I just grabbed now pointed into the distance and asked, "Do you see her?" I hadn't said anything about seeing a girl at this point. I didn't see anything where she was pointing, and then sounding shocked, she said, "She's gone. She was just right there." We each shared what we saw now, and she described what sounded like the exact same ghost I had just seen. Then our other friend asked if we'd heard anything. When I said, "Like what?" she said, "Like a few people talking to each other." I was starting to get uneasy now, my breath catching heavy in my throat. We were all spooked, but we carried on walking through the woods, though every instinct told me to turn back. I should have listened. We came upon a small clearing.
Now we take it to Illustrator.
Someone's camping trip laying around. Trees seemed to form a perfect circle around the little clearing. As we examined it out of nowhere, we all heard a blood-curdling scream. Instinctively, we all grabbed each other, looking around for the source of the sound. It didn't seem to come from one direction, but from all around us and from above us up in the air. We heard it again and clung harder to each other. Slowly turning our heads around to find the source of the screams, our eyes soon all rest on the same spot. We could all
I think I'm cutting the tears. I think I'm going to cut the tears and just make the eye bigger.
Solid like the girl, but you could easily make out his shape. He wasn't some shadow, more like a regular guy, just translucent. You could both see him and see through him.
All
His
right.
head hung to the side, and blood seemed to be dripping from where his arm was missing. Why was his arm missing? That was the worst part. We all screamed in unison and ran so fast out of that place we could hardly breathe by the time we made it back to my car. Needless to say, we never returned for another visit.
Wimps. Just kidding.
So just a little quick one there.
Yeah.
Just weird stuff in the woods.
I do wonder if it is folklore or if there's some truth to Mr. Blood. I mean, it'd be very
Probably
hard.
folklore.
I was thinking it's like, how could you not create folklore around a name like that?
I know. I'm sure his name played into it. Maybe he was kind of odd. That often happens. If he was like a hermit, if he was like eccentric, living alone. Yeah, like living out there by himself. That's who people tend to, in especially small towns, make up rumors about.
Do you think people would make up rumors about you if you still lived in your small town?
If I lived alone out there, 100%. 100%.
Oh, we should try it out. Let's move you to Riggins for a year.
Some social experiments.
We'll build a weird little cabin, just little bit outside of town.
100% get people talking. I would be a devil worshiper. Yeah. I'd be a warlock or something. Absolutely.
Then I can come.
You're already known as a cult leader, so you have
right
that to lean into.
Right.
Oh my God, that would be so funny.
Those rumors would affect it.
I can come to town just every so often.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
All dressed in black. That would be so. Your grandmother would be so mad at us. She would not find the humor. Now, if Papa Ward was still alive, he would think it was funny. Oh yeah, he'd think it was great.
Oh yeah, the rumor mill would be going full tilt.
Oh man, it'd be so fun.
A few pics. This first one is a picture of the main entrance to some trails in this forest. There's a marker there against that tree in the center.
Okay, I mean it doesn't look like anything.
Yeah, just some woods.
Just a forest.
Here's a close up of that marker. It says Lancaster Bloodtown Forest, established 1946, Wheelwright Memorial Entrance.
1946. I mean, it's not even really that old.
Huh? Not at all. That's why I think it's probably urban legends too, because like this Mr. Blood guy, it's not like he lived 200 years ago.
Right.
Here's another entrance, gated entrance to this nature preserve. You can see how thick the trees and the brushes, and just like any thick forest, just a strange place to notice anything becoming eerily silent.
Well, and it is pretty.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Just like the fall, and then you can see there's some headstones there immediately to the right when you walk in.
Yeah,
and that would be such a great photo shoot spot.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah, it's really pretty.
I do love East Coast Forest.
Any questions on that one?
That hard.
Oh, just not a question, but just a comment like that. Silence in the forest. You know, that's something I never ever considered. Like as how do I want to say this? That's something I never experienced or ever thought as being an option out in the forest.
Yeah.
Not that I spent so much time in the wilderness, but once we started this show, that theme comes up so often. And I remember early on in the show, we were really caught off guard by it because you were like, God, like I grew up around so much woods, so much forest, so much hiking, so much camping. And you'd never experienced that either. And it really really bothered us. And now I think we're just accustomed to like, oh yeah, that's just a thing that happens
jaded,
now. Yeah, but it I don't know. We haven't gone camping in so long.
I mean, because the forest is always. There's just so many little critters and
just the trees, some little critters.
Any kind of breeze moving them, rustling. Any kind of like squirrel moving through the branches is gonna knock things off. Bugs. There's always something. To hear nothing would be super eerie.
Yeah, it would be super eerie to be like out on a lake and also not hear anything. I was thinking about like our lake, the way it is surrounded by there's homes and then there's forest and then just the ripple of the water. What if you were out in the middle of Lake Coeur d'Alene and it just got totally silent?
Yeah,
you were just on a paddleboard, and obviously there's no like sharks or anything. I mean, there's no actual things to be afraid of in that lake.
Yeah, it would feel ominous.
Oh my God, I'd be so scared. I wouldn't even want to put my paddle in the water because I'd be afraid that something was going to come up and grab it. And I would just have to hope that I float to the shore.
Yeah.
That would be a really good backdrop for a horror story. Okay, and did you say you have 3?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, tell me one more, Dan.
So now it's time for my third story. It's on the longer side, packed full of paranormal claims. Before I tell it, time for a quick in-between story sponsor break. Please take advantage of these sponsored deals. Use our codes and landing pages so you save money, and we keep getting sponsored.
Keep it going. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Around this time of year, there are a lot of parents facing the reality of their child heading off to college. And this year, we are some of those parents. It's really exciting. I mean,
I hate these ads.
But it's also a time full of uncertainty.
I just hate ads.
What will life be like now? What does our future hold? What should we do next?
Life is full of change. Even when the changes are expected and exciting, they can still be challenging. The path forward, not always clear.
She's not.
Therapy is a great way to remain connected to yourself and what you really want, while also navigating the potential next steps in your life. Therapy can provide a quiet space to explore all of the emotions and all of the options in front of you.
The more you talk about what's going on in your life, the easier it gets. Whether it be your child leaving for college, starting a new job, or even healing a past trauma, therapy is an excellent place to start examining your inner workings. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's convenient and flexible so you can fit it into your busy life.
Find more balance with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/scared to death today to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/scared to death. Our dogs, or as I like to call them, our squeezles, squeezable weasels, are a lot like us. They love to snuggle up on the couch after a long week, settle in, and watch a good movie while enjoying some delicious snacks.
BarkBox recently sent us a box that felt like it was made for Penny and Ginger because it was full of movie night themed toys. A little bucket of popcorn, a Barkbuster movie toy, Swedish Fish, my personal favorite, and a bottle of root beer.
Yum.
I was laughing so damn hard at how adorable these toys were.
They're so creative. The packaging is so amazing as well. Penny and Ginger love these toys, of course. Ginger is obsessed with anything that squeaks. These toys have the best little squeakers. Penny is super food motivated, so she dropped her popcorn squeaky toy the moment she heard me opening up these little clucky soft bakes. She loves those little chicken bites. Maybe I should only give her 1 or 2. Maybe I give her 5 or 6 instead.
Easy. Do what we do and spoil your dogs with fun, hilarious, and delicious boxes from BarkBox. Sign up
following
now
this?
at barkbox.com/scared for an exclusive offer. And now this ad is over, so let's get back to petting our dogs.
Thanks for listening, Creeps and Peepers. Now to the Moffat family haunting.
How do you spell that?
Moffit.
Y'all follow this?
Oh, okay.
Moffat.
I was doing Little Miss Muffet sat on it.
Not much setup on this one before I start sharing alleged paranormal events.
Okay.
During the late 80s, early 90s in Southern California, the Moffat family reportedly were plagued for 7 years by the same terrifying entity.
Okay, guys.
I know what you're thinking. Worried
Get
about
the
a
fuck
Darren.
out.
Get the fuck out. Maybe, though. Maybe. You'll see. You'll see. Paranormal investigators and religious figures fled one after another. Even Ed and Lorraine Warren told the Moffats there was nothing they could do to help the family. Deborah had met her husband Bill in the early 80s after exchanging letters and videotapes in the early days of dating agencies.
Oh, cute.
After their courtship, Deborah and Bill got married and moved in with his parents in a house on Archibald Avenue. The Moffat family actually owned 3 houses on this street. The house at the end of the street was occupied by Lee's elderly grandmother, Dominica. The middle house was owned by Lee and Bill Sr., Bill's parents, with Bill and Deborah also now living there. Bill didn't live alone thanks to suffering from a serious heart condition. The next house in the row was owned by Bill, who rented it out while he lived with his parents. And by the time Deborah moved in, Dominica had been struggling for some time with health issues, and the family had hired a caretaker, a Juanita, to come over nearly every day to help out. Deborah claims that the source of the family's paranormal torment began with Juanita. Time now for the tale of no escape. Juanita was rumored to practice Santeria, and Deborah believes she performed a ritual inside the house that opened a doorway of some sort to the paranormal realm. Juanita apparently was on a work visa that allowed her to stay in America only while she had her job. In 1984, as Dominica's health declined, Deborah thinks Juanita grew worried that if Dominica died, she would have to leave the country. She thinks Juanita performed a ritual with the intention of having the gods give Dominica good health. But unfortunately, not long after the ritual, Dominica passed away. The very next morning after Dominica's passing, Bill Sr. and Lee received a panicked phone call from Juanita. She screamed into the phone, claiming that something was chasing her inside the house. She was speaking mostly in Spanish, was hysterical. They had a hard time understanding exactly what she was saying, what she was afraid of. Bill headed over to investigate. As he walked out of his front door, he claims he saw Juanita literally running down the road, being followed by what looked like a glowing white orb. And then he watched as the orb shot up into the sky and disappeared. Juanita walked back toward Bill Sr.'s, now deceased mother-in-law's home. Bill took Juanita inside of his house, tried to calm her, but she was inconsolable. She was still unable to describe, at least in English, exactly what was chasing her. They were able to figure out that whatever it was, it didn't appear as a white orb to her, but they still couldn't understand exactly what she had seen. A few minutes later, a friend came to pick her up, and she looked like she couldn't wait to leave. On her way out of the door, Juanita turned to Lee, Domenica's daughter, and said, "Do not go back into your mother's house. There is only evil there." Bill Sr. soon hired a cleanup crew to clean out Domenica's house, and that's when evidence of possible Santeria rituals were found. The men cleaning the house found lots of candles, some small ceremonial-looking daggers, and the remains of various sacrificed animals.
Oh.
Despite all of this, and Domenica's dramatic exit after being chased by that orb, over the next few years, everything was calm.
It's not normal.
But then in 1987, the energy around Archibald Avenue began to shift. The family first noticed strange events in the house that Bill rented out to a man named Danny. Although Danny was living there, Bill still kept one room for himself to store his large collection of sports memorabilia.
Okay.
And one day, Bill walked into that room to find all of his collectible bobbleheads on the floor in the shape of a triangle with a sort of S-shaped tail coming off of it. He didn't think too much of it at first, although Danny insisted he had never been in that room, and Bill was good about keeping it locked. Soon, the entity would move into another Moffat house. In Bill's parents' house, the one occupied by the two couples, Lee had an altar set up, a Catholic altar, and this altar was the site of the next paranormal events. Lee was a devout Catholic and would kneel in front of her altar covered in candles and religious statues to pray every night before bed. And one morning she woke up to find articles of her clothing placed in the hands of a statue of Jesus there. Soon after this, objects belonging to Danny from next door would appear on the altar. His wallet, keys, various household objects. This freaked both Danny and the family out. They kept the house locked. Danny didn't have the keys. He couldn't get in. And why would he lock his own stuff in his landlord's house? Bill and Deborah had keys to Danny's house, but no one ever saw one of them sneak into Danny's home alone to grab his wallet or keys. And why would they ever do that? Bill would always return the objects next door when they showed up. Everyone was so confused. How could the objects just materialize like that? Eventually, weirded out by his personal possessions continuing to show up next door, Danny moved out. Who could blame him? When Bill then went to clean out the house and get it ready for the arrival of new tenants, he found strange markings on the light switches drawn in crayon. Many of the markings were that same odd triangle with a tail, the symbol he'd first encountered in his sports memorabilia room. Later that same day, Lee, who was helping with the cleanup, noticed a high shelf with a row of ornamental dogs sitting on top of it. She liked the cute little figurines and admired them for a moment. Then she turned around to carry on with her tasks. When she looked at the shelf again, a few minutes later, she was startled. All the dogs had been turned to face the wall now. But no one else had been in the room since she'd seen them the first time. The next day, Deborah walked into Bill Jr.'s house to find a lamp in the middle of the bedroom floor that she was certain hadn't been there before. Thinking about it as she made her way downstairs, she settled in the kitchen, called out into the air, asking if anything was there. If it was, as proof of its presence, she asked it to move something else. She waited a few minutes, but nothing happened. But then when she entered the dining room, she found the table had been moved clear across the room. Following this, things seemed to calm down again, and some new tenants, Michelle and Tom, moved into Bill's rental. Or maybe things did not calm down at all. Maybe whatever was in that house was terrorizing the new couple living there. A few months later, Deborah saw Michelle outside tending to her garden with a bruised, swollen face. Michelle told Deborah in a hushed voice that ever since moving into that house, Tom had changed. She said he'd always been quiet and laid back, but shortly after they moved in, she said he'd become increasingly aggressive and violent, and she didn't know why. And then just a week later, Michelle disappeared. Tom said she'd broken up with him, left in the middle of the night. A few weeks later, Tom also disappeared, and the Moffat family never saw or heard from either one of them again. They just broke their lease and vanished. Soon, though, the Moffats found out what happened to at least one of them, and it was not good. Really not good. A strange man came looking for Tom within a few weeks of him moving out. When Deborah informed the man that Tom had left and no longer lived there, he shared the reason for his visit. He said he was there to pass on his condolences after Michelle's body was found in a landfill, wrapped up in a rug. She'd been murdered. Deborah felt sick. When the family had gone to the house to do another cleanup, they had been pleasantly surprised at the state of the house. Everything was immaculate except for one strange detail. A large rug belonging to the Moffats had disappeared from the living room. Now she knew where it had gone. Michelle had been killed in Bill's house. This new horrific discovery led to the Moffats selling all three of their houses on Archibald Avenue. The package sale went through at the end of 1987, and on the last day moving their belongings from their old house to their new house, Deborah and Lee heard what sounded like a large explosion coming from the kitchen. Running in to investigate, they found that all the cupboards, literally all of them, had been ripped off the walls. And then, while standing in the middle of the mess of broken wood, they heard another loud noise come from upstairs. Sounded like breaking glass. Both women were horror-struck when they found all the windows of an upstairs bedroom shattered from the inside out. They couldn't be more ready to move and put all of this behind them. The first few weeks in their new home were wonderful. Life was free once more from the paranormal. The Moffats felt
This isn't a perfect heart.
entity was bothering them behind.
Ugh.
But of course,
this is gonna piss me off.
I'm telling the story here, their torment was not over. In January of 1988, strange things started happening all over again. It started slowly. Initially, objects were being moved, but only slightly. So slightly that at first the family thought they were just being paranoid. When they thought a doll was maybe facing in a different direction than it was earlier that day, or that a chair was now a foot or so away from where they were sure it was normally set, and nobody could recall moving it. Then the noises started. Once the noises returned, they felt defeated. They weren't being paranoid. They were being haunted again. Whatever they tried to escape from on Archibald Avenue had followed. Now, in the middle of the night, in their new home, they would all be woken by distant screams. Once awake, they'd often hear voices whispering their names. And then they found the first of what would be many messages. One day, Lee went into the bathroom and found a message on the mirror written in soap. It said, "Talk to me."
Oh, nope.
Lee decided to do just that. She gathered the rest of the family. They all made their way into the bathroom. She wiped the message off the mirror and told whatever it was that they were ready to communicate. When nothing happened, they went next door and sat on Bill Sr.'s bed for a few minutes. Nothing happened there either. But then upon re-entering the bathroom, they found a new message on the mirror. It read, "No escape."
Oh my God.
More messages would appear in the mirror over the following weeks. Deborah went into the bathroom one morning and found the word "fools." A few days later, "I hate Lee." Following that, a threat. "Lee, die." Worried and scared for his wife, Bill Sr. went into the bathroom one day and yelled out, "Who are you?" The entity answered with one word, "Prince." Prince who? Prince of what? Bill Sr. now reached out to a local Catholic church and arranged for a priest to come over to their new house and perform a blessing. And that would kind of happen. According to the Moffats, the priest almost didn't make it past the front door. They said that upon arriving on the doorstep, the priest looked extremely uncomfortable and refused to go any further. After a few minutes of calming himself down, he finally gathered up the courage to enter, but after just a couple of steps inside, he stopped. He sprinkled holy water where he stood, said a quick prayer, left the house in a big rush. The priest's visit seemed to anger the entity, as the activity in the house intensified immediately following his reluctant visit. The spirit was now writing messages several times a day. Symbols also began appearing around the house, especially that strange triangle shape with the tail. That symbol would now show up carved into walls. Pentagrams and upside-down crosses appeared as well. Lee, the most religious member of the family, was definitely the primary target of the entity's malignancy. Her altar would be destroyed almost daily. She and Bill Sr. would go to bed to find their blankets strewn about or their mattress actually torn. The atmosphere on the second floor of their house, where their bedroom was located, became so oppressive they ended up abandoning that level of their home. Bill Sr. and Lee moved into the bedroom downstairs. They shared it now with their son and daughter-in-law, Bill Jr. and Deborah. The family felt safer together, and so far the entity had seemed to leave Deborah alone. And it would also leave Lee alone, if she was near Deborah, it seemed. But whenever Lee was by herself, even on the first floor, the entity would find and torment her.
I hate that.
Lee was reading a Bible for comfort one day when a message appeared
Captain,
on
you
the
just
first
scared the
floor
piss out of me, big dog.
that said, "God's fairy tale." Lee started speaking in Italian whenever she was speaking to her husband, hoping maybe this would confuse the entity. Instead, messages now started to appear in Italian. At this point, the family were at their wits' end. They'd move again, but what good would that do? They were convinced the entity would just follow them once more. Deborah and Lee instead started thoroughly researching the paranormal and trying to find professionals to help them, spending hours in libraries and at paranormal conventions. Meanwhile, the activity in their new home started getting violent. Objects began being thrown across rooms. Kitchen knives started appearing in places where Lee was going to be sitting or lying down. One night, she went to get into bed and found 6 kitchen knives with their handles embedded into the mattress. So the blades were pointing up. Their home was also now full of new smells. The stink of shit or sulfur would arise out of nowhere. There was so much activity. Knockings and scratches were being constantly heard coming from the walls. The local population of birds seemed to have increased exponentially. Numerous birds started flying head-on into their windows. occasionally hard enough to leave a trail of blood dripping down the glass. And they started seeing rats, strange rats that wouldn't run and hide when spotted, rats who would stare back defiantly and seem to watch the family. One day, Deborah went into the bathroom stressed and flustered and begged the entity to please make the rats go away, and then no rats were ever seen again. They had no idea why the entity would seem to show them any mercy. This act of mercy was rare. In general, it only seemed to want to antagonize the family. Not long after the disappearance of the rats, the entity started bringing things, trinkets and such, into the home from places they had visited. And when the family would go on their first vacation while living in their new house, they found symbols on the hotel walls, including that S with the tail. The entity seemed to be making it clear that wherever they went, it would follow, that it could go wherever they had been. There would be, as it had once written, no escape. Lee and Deborah eventually came into contact with a Native American shaman named Redwing, who, after hearing their stories, went to speak with her elder and was granted permission to visit the family in their home and try and help. Redwing and another tribal member known as Fire Panther arrived the next day. Fire Panther burned sage, began walking around the house, wafting the smoke into every corner and crevice he could find with a feather. On the first floor, neither Fire Panther nor Redwing came across any entity or any concerning energy. But something strange happened when they went upstairs. The smoke that Fire Panther tried wafting towards the attic was bouncing back down, as if something up there were rejecting it. He told the family that they would have to go up into the attic and confront the entity. Deborah now accompanied Fire Panther and Redwing into the attic. Fire Panther again started burning sage and chanting. As he did, Deborah saw a bit of the insulation on the wall begin to shift around and change shape. She'd say she wasn't sure at first if her eyes were playing tricks on her, but then the movement became more obvious. The insulation twisted and contorted into the shape of a face, with a kind of twisted horn coming out of it. Deborah looked on in horror as it held its new shape for about a minute before falling onto the floor and disintegrating in a cloud of dust. Unfortunately, this attempt at chasing whatever the entity was out of the house was unsuccessful. Fire Panther informed the family that whatever they were dealing with, it was just too strong. Super weird, he did say he managed to remove a manifestation of evil from inside of Bill Sr. and transfer it into the family dog. The Moffats were, as you can imagine, not quick to believe this claim, but then a few days later, the dog inexplicably passed away, and their paranormal torment continued. At the end of 1988, a paranormal researcher by the name of Gary Kent offered to come stay with the family and see if he could be of any help. The entity immediately made it clear that it did not like Gary being around. From the moment he came into the house, it turned its attention away from Lee and towards Gary. Gary would find his clothes and belongings destroyed. Threatening messages would appear on the bathroom mirror, along with personal information he hadn't shared with the Moffats, stuff they wouldn't know to write about. The entity, and I find this pretty funny since it's not happening to me, would even write messages apparently accurately tormenting Gary about his sex life and penis size. That's a new one. After just a few nights in the Moffats' new home, Gary found knives embedded in his mattress one evening, the same way they once appeared in Lee's, blade up. The next morning at breakfast, a strange sipping noise could be heard that sounded like snipping noise, and Gary's hair began falling out in clumps onto the table. He ran into the yard, hair still falling from his head, and then he was gone. That was understandably the last straw for Gary. He grabbed his things and left. Shortly after that debacle, the growing family contacted famed demonologist Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Warrens came very highly recommended, and the family thought if anyone could help, it would be them. The couple arrived at the house, and Lorraine did a walkthrough to see if she could pick up on any psychic energies. She soon told the family they were dealing with a very powerful ancient demon. The Warrens returned the next night to conduct a rite of provocation ritual designed to get the demon to identify itself, so they could then have power over it and get it to leave. The family and the Warrens gathered on the floor in the shape of the letter U, and Ed began to pray. And shortly after he began, Bill Sr.'s body began to unnaturally contort. He started to lean forward, his spine curling in a way that was painful to watch. It looked like his back was about to break. And then he suddenly lifted his head and began growling and snarling at Ed. Ed protected himself by holding the Holy Cross out in between he and Bill, and he prayed and prayed until Bill's body fell limp. Then, sadly for the Moffats, Ed informed the family he was unable to gain any real power over the demon to remove it. It was too strong. He said that the entity had possessed Bill Sr., and while he was able to force it back out of Bill's body, he and Lorraine were not able to force it out of the home. Deborah, who was a mother now, she and Bill had a child and would soon have more children, ran into the bathroom and pleaded with the entity to not harm her family, to please just leave them alone. And the entity replied with, "I will not touch your child. I will not touch your husband, but Lee belongs to me."
What the fuck?
More messages followed throughout the day, and they told a story set in the 16th century in a monastery.
I just love the what the fuck?
The monks had kidnapped a nun in order to perform some kind of blood ritual. The nun had escaped, and the entity claimed that in a past life, Lee was that nun, and now her blood was rightfully his. At the end of these messages, things took the most
He's got a point.
Yet, with the next message on the mirror reading, "Lee will die in 10 days.
You're gonna die in 7 days.
They made sure that Lee was never left alone. But still, on the final day of the countdown, Lee was rushed to the hospital with pneumonia and congestive heart failure. Things were not looking good as Lee drifted in and out of consciousness in the hospital bed. However, the entity's prediction would not quite come true. She was very sick, but she would not die, not yet. It took 3 weeks before she showed any signs of improvement, and then she slowly regained her strength and eventually was allowed back home to stay with her family. During Lee's long stay in the hospital, the entity left the rest of the family alone. The house was quiet, and Lee later told Deborah why. She said the thing followed her to the hospital. She claimed that while she was drifting in and out of consciousness, she kept seeing black stains appear on the ceiling that seemed to be trying to materialize into the shape of a man. She was convinced it was the entity, trying to make sure she died in the hospital. Once Lee returned home, paranormal activity returned. On her first day back, the entity severed her oxygen
Totally gonna
tank
just
tubes.
steal this.
A few days later, her son-in-law, Bill Sr., woke up screaming, convinced that something cold and sharp had scraped against his leg, and then he found what cut him. It was an old-looking dagger that no one in the family had ever seen before. Shortly after this disturbing attack, a new message appeared on the bathroom mirror saying the blood ritual must be performed. The entity gave instructions on how to use the blade to perform the ritual, but of course the family refused. Later, they would take the blade to the Museum of Natural History in Los Angeles, where they claimed they were told it was an ancient ritualistic spear tip from the Congo. And then this weird story gets even weirder. Nearing the end of 1989, the family now made contact with a woman named Evelyn. Evelyn identified herself as a paranormal expert and also a practitioner of witchcraft. When she came to the house, she showed the family various protection symbols for them to draw on the mirror. A new message from the entity appeared on the mirror directly following one of these symbols being drawn that said, "Fuck you, you lied to my family." After her investigation of the home, Evelyn unfortunately told them the entity was one of the 7 princes of hell and that nothing could be done to remove it. And she said it was Bill Sr.'s fault. She accused Bill
fucked like
of
that.
having made some sort of deal with the demon, that he invited it into their lives. Lee would hear none of this. They were a deeply religious family. She felt like there was no way that her husband would ever make a deal with a literal demon to harm her. But Deborah wasn't so sure. She'd say she'd been noticing for a while that Bill Sr.'s behavior had been changing. Something was seeming more and more wrong with him. Did he conspire with whatever entity came through the door Juanita may have opened? Not long after having another expert tell them there was nothing they could do to help the Moffat family, a previous expert who had visited the family, paranormal researcher Gary Kent, the guy whose hair was cut and tormented, returned for round 2. He offered to stay with the Moffats again, and they accepted his offer. But shortly after he arrived, the entity left a message saying that he would accept Gary's blood in place of Lee's now. Now the entity seemed to want Gary to die, and Gary left again. Meanwhile, in passing, Lee mentioned to Deborah that Bill Sr. was looking for some of Lee's bank statements. Although the two were married, they separated their finances and kept separate bank accounts. When Dominica had passed, Lee had inherited a large amount of money from her mother and was now a wealthy woman. Deborah wondered, did Bill want her money? If they got divorced, he would possibly get half, but if Lee were to die, he would definitely get it all. With that thought in her mind, she went to the bathroom and asked the demon outright if Bill Sr. had invited it in. And she said a message quickly appeared in the mirror saying, "This little prick wants me to kill Lee. He does not command me." Deborah told Lee, who would still not entertain the possibility that Bill wished her harm. But she did think Bill had been acting more and more strangely. She convinced him to agree to a psychiatric evaluation, and that led to Bill Sr. being committed to a mental health facility for 2 weeks. While he was away from the house, the entity was quiet. Upon arrival to pick Bill Sr. up and take him home, Lee was cornered by him and told she needed psychiatric help, that she was responsible for the haunting. They got into a huge fight that eventually led to Lee kicking her husband out of the house. And Deborah claims that after he left, the family would not see him again. In his absence, the entity still made his presence known, moving objects around and such, but never in a threatening way. It seemed that Bill really was the true catalyst for paranormal terror. However, the family still found it hard to relax knowing some entity was still around and they never knew when they were being watched. Things continued like this for a few years, and then at the end of 1994, Gary Kent returned for a third time,
Jesus.
along with news that he was leaving for England. And in a super strange turn of events, he went to the bathroom and asked the entity that had previously been open to having him sacrificed to leave with him. Allegedly, the entity would write a message saying, "Gary needs me." And sure enough, when Gary left, so did the entity. And the Moffat family were never bothered again. The Moffats thought they were just going to speak of. The Moffats thought that they were never going to speak of any of this again, put it all behind them. But after the passing of Lee in 2009 and Bill Jr. in 2012, Deborah broke her silence, and along with her daughter Jessica, born in 1990, they decided to share their story with the world. And just this year, Blumhouse Productions bought the rights to their story and plans to make both a film and TV series based around this haunting. Chris McCumber, president of Blumhouse Television, said, "The story of Mr. Entity is one of the best examples we've seen of truth being stranger than fiction." A lot of shit.
A lot of shit. Here's the thing. I want to not believe so much of it because I'm like, I don't know. But when you have that many sources, like you have the Warrens, you have, what's his name? Gary Clark. It's not Gary Clark Jr. What's his name?
Gary Kent.
Clark Kent. When Superman shows up a couple times. I mean, like, you have all these people. That is a lot of coordination to get all those people to buy into this story.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think with stories like this, that, you know, it doesn't have to be all not true or all true.
That's fair.
So there could be like some true elements and then some lies.
Some embellishments.
A lot of exaggerations.
Right, because when you're wrapped up in it, like, let's just say that there was poltergeist activity and there was a haunting possession, it is easy for every little thing to feel like something.
Totally.
And then when you're all in it together, I think it's very easy to just get wrapped up in it and be like, no, don't you remember it happened like this? And it's like, no. I mean, it becomes the telephone game a bit.
Yep. Fish story, you know, the fish just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Yep. The hysteria of them, like that group hysteria, they just feed off one another. So who knows where the truth is? But it is an interesting one. I keep saying that, so I guess drink.
Drink. He stumbled on his words so many times. I hope you guys are all smashed right now.
I know. I did.
I also, I find it surprising that nobody talked about this in the story or that version of it. What do we think about the possibility that it's Bill, right? That Bill and Juanita were having an affair, and the plan was to kill Dominica, take the money, and run.
Or kill Lee?
No. Well, they needed the grandmother to die.
Yeah, so she dies.
So then they get the money.
I see.
And so it's like, and then it was like,
it would be a two-part plan. Then you'd want Dominica to die, leave Lee the money.
Just got darker in here.
And then have Lee die, so that
he
Bill
would get the money.
Sr. gets all the money, and then can share it with Juanita.
Yeah. I mean, yes. So I don't know. But then Bill Jr. I mean, it's like a poorly thought out plan because it's like, well, your money she could have also left her money to her son. Like, it could have just come like exponentially.
Yeah, especially since their finances were separate. Who knows what their will?
Stop, dude.
Why do people do that?
Well, a lot of times they do it. I mean, it does make sense. I'm so glad, like you and I don't. We like collaborate and everything, and that works for us.
I mean, I know why people do it. I just meant like.
I know it is interesting, but I mean,
in this situation, I wonder why.
Yeah,
it's like, like we have neighbors who keep their money separate, and neither one of them was ever married before. There's no history of one of them being a real spender.
They just get along better.
Fucking darker in here, so fucking weird. But yeah, I don't. I'm like.
I have a few pictures. This first one is Deborah Moffat in recent years, long after the haunting was over, with her daughter Jessica.
Okay, they look weirdly similar.
I know. This next one, a collage of pictures of messages on the mirror, and that strange triangular symbol written around the house with a little tail.
And what year was this happening? Do you remember? Like,
yes, it was happening in the late 80s and early 90s.
Okay, I was just trying to think about what these photos look like, and I see like the little like timestamp that would come on digital cameras at that time.
Yep. There was that triangle. I think that was like baby powder or something, or salt. Something like flour, something sugar, left on the carpet. There, you can see no escape in the bottom right-hand corner as we look at it. This next collage is of a bed frame that the Moffats claimed the entity almost tipped over, a slashed mattress, and random items brought into the house and scattered around the floor.
I was just thinking about what a long con this would have to be for all of them to be in on this. The photos, And then like waiting all these years.
Especially trying to get like a movie deal, and many of the
I
original
know.
people died, so there's only a few of them left.
Which could make it all the more
like a 30-year con.
Well, no, that just like this could be completely made up. That they made this up after all those people died, and then because they didn't release this story until.
But Ed and Lorraine Warren did write about it many years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is documentation from when it was happening.
Oh yes, and Clark and Superman.
Is
he still alive?
Blues guitarist Superman, Gary Clark Kent Jr.
Who we're going to see this year. I'm so excited to see him. We'll have to see if we can have a little chat with him.
Yeah.
Excuse me, sir. You don't know me, but we have this paranormal podcast, and we hear a ghost chopped off your hair.
Exactly. And that's all the pictures I have for that one.
It was a very long story.
I know.
It didn't scare me. I was fascinated by it.
Yeah, you got tense in moments.
Yeah, because I just kept thinking, like, you guys, okay, well, and then also, I mean, poor Lee. I was like, well, we need to send Lee away. I can't. It is surprising to me that at no point when the entity called out Lee did anyone think like, okay, as an experiment, where could we send Lee that she would be safe, like a convent, no, but seriously, like a very religious place where she would be surrounded by people who would care for her and protect her and pray over her and all of that. Like if we remove her from the situation, what happens?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, why? Why did we not do that?
I pictured a horrible thing with somebody where it's like, okay, we're worried about this, demon is, just focused on you. We're gonna get you separated from the rest of us just to find out if it's with you or the house.
Good luck.
We're gonna keep you safe. And then you have them driven across town, and it's like some like Airbnb kind of setup, but then they're just taken down into a basement with like pentagrams all over the place. Like you're just trying to accelerate it to like get rid of them or just give the thing what it wants.
That's so mean.
Yeah, I know. Just said it was a crazy thought.
I've never seen that triangle, like that triangular sperm symbol.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what that represents.
I don't know what it is either. I thought that was weird. Okay, wait. I also thought it was weird that they were living with their parents.
Remember, he had health problems.
Yeah, but the mom was still there.
No, Bill Jr.
Oh, Bill Jr. had the heart problem?
Yeah, he had the heart problem.
But now he was married to Deborah, so why did they need to live with his mom and dad?
That's a great point.
But I was like, I don't understand why we're all living together.
I know.
And you have this rental, which, yes, is great for extra income, but...
I don't know all the details there. I mean, I guess some families, that's what works for them.
Not our family.
No.
Children, if you're listening, don't even fucking think about it.
I just think about it. You know what's funny is like I think our kids would not want to live with us, which is natural. They'd be like, no way.
Yeah.
I'd be more open to like, yeah, kids are great. They can like, kind of.
Nope.
But the other way, having to live with my parents, get the fuck out of here. No way.
No way. Did you just GTFO? That's a good one.
And I didn't even plan it for the drinking game.
Yeah. Sorry. Oh yeah, because I was wondering like. Also with Juanita, before I made the possible connection between her and Bill and like an affair or whatever, I'm like, did Juanita ever possibly think, okay, I'm going to curse this family.
Yeah.
And then they're going to need to keep me here to undo the curse. Like would they see me as the source of, because like, when did she go away? They don't really.
Very early in the story. I mean, right away. Like when Dominica passed.
Yeah.
She was gone within days.
She could have stayed.
I don't know.
They could have given her another job.
They could have. Well, maybe. But she was her caretaker, so actually not really.
But it was a work visa, so it's like they could have. I mean, to me, I'm just like, if you think that she's the source of like this Santeria, I would want her around to help undo it.
I wouldn't. I'd just get out of here.
Well, it didn't help.
Done enough.
Well,
yeah.
We don't really know if she did that. And also, I've never heard of the 7 Princes of Hell. That was new.
I think that might come from like Dante or something.
Dante's Peak?
I have.
What?
Dante's Inferno. So, I have heard of the 7 Princes of Hell.
You have?
Like major demons, I believe. You know what? Just because of my brain,
sure.
I'm gonna look it up
Dan.
really quick while you get setting things up.
No, you can't do 2 things at once. So I am set up. I am ready to go. And
you are.
There's literally no point in me starting to tell a story while you're looking at a phone.
I was gonna say I like the idea of different levels of demons.
Yeah.
So like obviously one of the 7 Princes of Hell is a pretty dope job title, but then you have like lower level just runs like Greg the Demon.
Hey, yeah, exactly.
I would be okay with being haunted by Greg the Demon, but not a Prince of Hell.
Just like the basic like an accountant down in like the bottom floor of the Hell's administrative building. 7 Princes of Hell. It is the highest, most powerful of all the demons. one, like in this weird classification thing online, there's like Lucifer, who represents pride. They represent the 7 deadly sins.
Oh.
Mammon, greed. Asmodeus or Asmodeus, lust. Leviathan, envy. Beelzebub, gluttony. Satan, wrath. And Belphegor, sloth.
Huh.
So they separated like a lot of common terms for Satan into like 3 different terms there.
That's interesting.
Mhm.
Well, thank you for sharing that very valuable piece of information.
You bet.
Are you ready for my stories now?
I am.
I wish
Got
that
the classic Layla.
Oh man, our niece just came for a visit and she kidnapped a Layla from our studio.
Mm-hmm.
She was very excited about how good it smelled.
Oh, it was great to see Ellie.
So cute. Well, here we go.
Let's do it.
The only house on the block. My best friend since elementary school lived in a home that she and her 5 siblings swore was haunted. They mentioned seeing shadows in their home, bumps and bangs throughout the home when there shouldn't have been, catching movement out of the corner of their eyes, and hearing whispers. Each sibling seemed to encounter the spirits in the home in a different way, but the tale of why the home was haunted had me doubting all of them. They claimed that a grandma had killed all her grandkids and buried them in the basement.
What?
This sounded completely made up. Maybe one of those older siblings playing an ongoing prank on the younger siblings kind of thing. Maybe it was no different than the stories we made up about the girl buried in the walls of our elementary school. False claims to terrify anyone dumb enough to believe it. As we grew older, their family moved and the old house was condemned to be torn down. This got my friend talking about the murderous grandma again. Being more of an age for sick truth, I asked for validation from my grandpa. Grandpa had worked for the police force for years, so I considered him an expert on crime around our community. When I asked if it was true, Grandpa simply stated it was a terrible crime. It was just so sad what happened.
Whoa.
Seeing my grandpa's reaction, I dropped the story, never looking into it any further. If my grandpa was that affected by the crime, then I assumed there was a murder and it was traumatic for the small town community we lived in. One of those things you just didn't talk about in polite conversation. Fast forward to being a single mom and wanting to move out of my parents' house. My grandpa suggested his friend, who was selling a home not too far from my family, so I could still rely on them for babysitting. By getting this house, it would save me money because it wouldn't have to be listed. A naive young person like me jumped at the opportunity. I bought the house, and even though I thought something felt off, I bought the house even though I felt something was off. The house was empty, but it felt like something inside was always watching me. The basement had old river rock walls and looked more like a dungeon than anything. I had no desire to go down there, ever. My family, who was helping me move things in, said they wouldn't even go down there, even if there had been a tornado. The home was nearly 100 years old, so it felt like it held the history of previous owners in its bones. Moving in and unpacking that first night, my son AJ was out of the house staying with my aunt since his room wasn't yet set up. It was storming and the power flickered. I had never been afraid of the dark before, but something about being alone in the dark in a new place had me looking over my shoulder. The home owning thing seemed to lose its charm quite quickly. It dawned on me during the lights flickering and the thunder rumbling that this house was the only house on the block. The house that once neighbored my home was the one my friends had lived in, the one where the murders had happened. Being on my own, where I was responsible for the well-being of my 2-year-old, this terrified me. I have always believed in the paranormal and ghosts. What if the
Thoughts
kids
here?
who
What
were
are my
murdered
thoughts
next
here?
door had no place to go since that home was torn down, and now they
Any
were living
thoughts?
in my home? These thoughts plagued me, and I was unable to sleep in my room by myself. I tried, but even having the radio on to drown out the small creaks was not helping. I had the sliding doors of the closet slid open so that if anything went bump in the night, I could instantly debunk it. I have always had an active imagination, so I do not like letting my mind wander as I figure out what might be behind a door or a curtain. I slept on the couch for the first 4 months of living there, falling asleep watching TV every night, and I kept the lights on too. I would hear the occasional squeak of the floor as if someone were walking around the house. I could feel something darting around the corners of the hallway, but I could never see it. One of these nights on the couch, I was drifting in and out of sleep when suddenly, for no reason, the clock above my kitchen sink fell off the wall and clattered loudly onto the dishes. I stayed on the couch frozen, my heart beating so hard I thought it would beat out of my chest. Seeing no movement from the kitchen, I got up and walked to the sink. I looked at the faux wall. It was a decorative piece that connected the cabinets and went in front of the window so you couldn't see the curtain rods above the sink. The nail was still there, and there was no way to explain how the clock just fell. It's not like a mouse was in the wall, wiggling the nail. I moved the clock to the counter, not prepared to deal with it, and then went back to the couch. Over the next couple of weeks, I would get up and check on AJ in the middle of the night, figuring that if those ghost kids could mess with the clock, how could they not also mess with my child? I would check in on him, and I always found him tucked into bed, tightly. And this would have been normal, except for the fact that AJ had always been a mover when he sleeps. I never tucked him in like that. Sometimes his fan would be turned off in the middle of the night, but his radio would still be on, so I knew there was no electrical issues. I thought to myself, okay, maybe these are some nice things the ghosts are doing. Maybe they don't mean us any harm. As if it wasn't weird enough, AJ would play and babble and talk as children do when they play pretend, but his conversations were always one-sided. I would walk by, and any time this happened, he'd be looking into his closet. I didn't ask who he was talking to because honestly, I didn't want to know. I would watch him from the hall and hear him wait for his turn to talk in the conversation. Sometimes he would show someone something, someone I couldn't see, like how to play with his toys. Cool, so now he was making friends with the ghost children. AJ was spending the night at my aunt's one evening when I heard one of his toys go off in his closet. My initial reaction was, hell no, not today, Satan. And then I realized I was the adult here. I had to be the one to go check this out. And sure enough, there was no reason why the toy cash register would be making noise. I took the batteries out and set it back down, but days later, still with no batteries in it, the cash register started beeping again, as if a child were playing with it. I took it out of his room and placed it in the Three Seasons room, where more of his toys were. As I was sitting in the living room with a clear sight of the room and of AJ taking a nap, that toy went off once again. It still had no batteries in it, and yet it was beeping and dinging. My only knowledge of defense was to grab the salt from the kitchen and sprinkle it over the toy. And I did so, and as I did, the beeping stopped. I was conflicted. This was innocent playing, but I wasn't going to keep up with this happening. Being a responsible adult and doing responsible things with my adult money, I bought a Ouija board, hoping to talk to these spirits and let them know I meant them no harm, but also to ask them to leave us in peace. I was alone, which I knew was a no-no, but I was determined to get to the bottom of this. I even had water, dirt, and a candle going so the spirit could use the energy from the elements to communicate with me. But shockingly, or maybe luckily, nothing happened. Discouraged, I thought maybe I was taking things a bit too far. It was nearing Halloween, and my students were talking about spooky things. I decided to bring the Ouija board because a few of the students were interested. During my prep period, 2 students and I shut off the lights and played with the Ouija board. Unlike the time I used this same board at home, we were actually getting some results. We asked simple things at first, gaining responses. The students assured me they weren't moving the planchette. When they asked more personal questions, trying to understand who these spirits were, these students miraculously found they were talking to deceased loved ones, as well as one of the teacher's parents who had just recently passed. But then it was my turn to ask questions. I asked how many spirits were around me. 2. Did they have a connection to me? No. Did they have a connection to my house? Yes. Did they wish harm on my son? No. Did they wish me harm? Yes. What were their names? C and J, and then the numbers 7, 4, 6, 2. I was so confused. How could my students make up responses that would spook me? This absolutely had to be real. Closing the session, I told the kids that was enough for today, and I quickly got on my computer to do some research. The children next door who were murdered were 2 sons and a grandson. The sons were murdered in 1974, and their ages were 6 months and 2 years old.
Ugh.
Their names were Chris and John. And the woman who murdered her the woman who murdered her grandson decades later. The woman only confessed to murdering her 2 children 30 years after the crime when she was arrested for smothering her grandson. She smothered the kids because, quote,
I'm struggling
she
with the
was
coloring of
selfish
this.
and didn't want them having attention and stuff she couldn't get from other people. Reading that information on my screen, I nearly died. How? What were the odds that these letters and numbers would come up? It had to be the ghost of the kids. Of course they would wish me harm. Their own mother had killed him and then kept it secret for decades. They wouldn't hurt AJ because he would have been seen as a playmate, as a friend. Since that conversation, the bumps in the night at my house grew more frequent. As the months went on, my boyfriend would be at the house while I was at work and would hear bumps and thumps throughout the house. He described it to me as the sound of kids running around the house. I decided to tell him the story of the house next door and my dealings with the Ouija board. He said he had a way of dealing with the ghosts and had a history of being able to get things to leave. But he told me if I ever brought that Ouija board into the house again, he was going to set it on fire. So the board stayed in my classroom, and George did whatever it was that got the activity to die down, at least for a while. It was years of dealing with this when I finally listened to your podcast in my car. It was the episode with the haunted paintings, and I really wanted to see these creepy images, but I was driving. George and I watched the podcast later, and with each painting, I got more and more creeped out. The anguished man one haunted both of us, and of course my stepdaughter, who happened to get interested partway through the podcast, saw that one too. That night, AJ was once again visiting my aunt. George woke up in the middle of the night and saw the shadow of a small child at the foot of our bed. When he told me the next morning, I immediately got the sage out and got to work. Was this a result of watching the podcast at home? Did it anger the kids? That weekend, we had also looked at a new house and we were talking about moving. Was our soon-to-be absence drawing the kids to act out? Regardless, my sage did nothing because the next night my husband said he woke up again in the middle of the night and instead of a child standing at the foot of our bed, he saw a child crawling on our ceiling. He described the child as pitch black, darker than the shadows in the room. The child was crawling across the ceiling, only stopping to look at him, kinking its neck around to lock eyes with George. 2 nights later, we were sitting in the dining room
Hell
in
no.
his room watching TV. As George and I were talking, we heard the exact three knock style my son uses when he wants to enter our room. This isn't the first time he's mistakenly thought we were in our room, so we both laughed at his mistake and said, "Hey, bub, we're over here." Then our faces went white when we heard the sound of AJ getting out of his bed and pounding across the floor to peek his head around the corner. "What?" he asked, confused. George and I shared a look of concern. "You just knocked at our door, right, bub?" I asked. He shook his head, no. I grabbed my selenite crystal and sage and began making rounds in the house while AJ looked at me like I was crazy. I also walked around telling whatever energy was there that this was still my house and they weren't allowed to terrorize us. They could save it for the new owners, but it wasn't going to be us anymore. Unfortunately, the deal fell through on the buyer's end, so we had to stay in the house. The activity is still here. I finally decided to ask my grandpa for more details about the case and if he knew the woman who had committed the murders, hoping it would help me stop it once and for all. He explained the same things, but this time my grandma piped in, telling me that grandpa and the murderer woman had dated in middle school, to which my grandpa said, "Yeah, as serious as middle school dating can be, with the roll of an eye, but just another reason for these kids to have it out for me." Wiz Khalifa. Her name cracks me up. It's like a funny.
Like Wiz Khalifa, yeah.
Yeah. And then she linked a news article about that woman. I could share it in the episode description. But this woman, I mean, it is crazy. She killed her two kids.
Yeah.
And then like 30 years
Got
later.
away with it.
Yeah, got away with it. And then 30 years later, smothered her grandson to death.
Jeez.
Like, what a fucking psychopath.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a wild story.
And I wonder how many kids she had total. I mean, at least 3 for her to kill 2,
yeah.
and then 1 to have, a grandkid later.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Man. Yeah, there was so many elements of that story, that, if this listener is telling the truth, which I have no reason to believe that they're not.
Yeah, why would you make this up?
The toy not having batteries, that stuff, we haven't had one of those in a while, and that always gets me, where it's like, it shouldn't be able to make noises if it doesn't have any power.
Right.
And then when they poured, I think it was like salt on it, and then
Yeah.
it just immediately stopped. That's super creepy. Thought it was pretty funny that she was playing with the Ouija board at school.
Oh my God, I immediately was like, I'm not the parent that would be upset about that.
Me
Not
neither.
really. But man, there would be some angry parents.
Oh man, my brain went to this whole place of Parents are furious, want the teacher fired, but it's actually not illegal. Legally, it is just a game.
It's just
And then
a
it
game.
becomes this whole battle of like religion versus secular, kind of laws and everything. I was really going into this whole thing in my head.
I figured you might.
But yeah, I thought that was an unusual element to the story. And then the things that came up with the Ouija board, that her students, like the numbers and the names and the letters.
I know. It's so crazy to me. So I flipped back to that. The letters that came up were C and J, and the children who were murdered were Chris and John.
Yeah.
And then the numbers that came up were 7462. And the kids were murdered in 1974. So there's your 74. And they were 6 months and 2 years old. So there's your 6 and your 2. That is so, like, she didn't even know that.
Right.
And her students didn't know that. So there was no way to fake that. Not that I can come up with anyways.
I know this is one of those stories that just seems like very, very good evidence for the reality of the paranormal.
I think so too. I am curious what George tried to do to get the ghosts out of the house and what his history is with removing spirits from homes. Clearly didn't work, George.
Yeah, that's still
and
there
they're
right
still,
now.
Yeah, and they're still there now. So I'm like, man, what are you doing every day?
God, that thing about like when was it a dream or did he wake up and see the little kid crawling on the ceiling?
Woke up because one night he saw a shadow at the foot of the bed, and then the next night on the ceiling.
That is so creepy. Like,
I know. You can like hear the like that like
and then craning its head, like flipping its head back around to like look at you from up there.
I know we've seen
It's like
that in so many horror movies. It's so scary.
Spider combined with something about that whole spider crawl.
Yeah.
Like moving up the walls. It's just maybe that's why it creeps us out. It does remind us of spiders. Makes me think of that huge spider on the boat the other day that you saw. That I mean, it was a monster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That thing was huge.
Yeah.
My failed attempts at getting rid of it were pretty comical, I bet, to watch. I just kept trying to like scoop water out of the lake and like splash it.
Then I flicked it.
And then you said it crawled across the
that
water.
That thing was so creepy. I've never seen a spider. I just flicked it off the side of the boat and it shoots out into the water and then immediately and so fast, like it was swimming, but it looked like it was crawling back across the water. I'm like, oh, you nasty little thing.
Yeah. I know. I wanted to get
big
you.
Big old giant body. Like probably in my mind, it was like full of like eggs or something.
Ew, gross.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. Do you have time for one more?
Let me check my watch. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, what did I say the name of the story was? Oh, yeah. Who is it?
Okay.
Yeah. Hail, Bad Magic Crew. My name is Jen, and I'm from Minnesota. I'm a single mom of a 2.5-year-old girl, Rosie. I had to take a few minutes after listening to this week's episode and share my most recent experience. It's one that still has me a bit jittery. In recent weeks, Rosie has taken to getting out of her bed in the night, climbing the stairs, coming into my bedroom, and crawling into bed with me after I've fallen asleep. I usually don't notice her until my alarm goes off the next morning. Tuesday, December 17th of this year, so obviously this is last year, was a rough day. After months of searching for a rental or a house to buy in my price range, the offer and rejection process, family squabbles, and the disappointing news that the fella I was into wasn't into me the way I had hoped, it was all too much, and I had a good old stress cry after the house was quiet. I'm not sure if others cry like I do. Usually, it's a frustratingly one-sided conversation I have in my head with my dad, who passed away 10 years ago. He's the guy I always went to for advice and comfort. After a good cry, I got ready for bed. I turned on Pandora to play Dan's Station and set my timer for 40 minutes and got into bed, turning the light off and getting settled under the covers. After I listened and chuckled along to my favorite comedians, I heard the door pop. It doesn't shut flush, and it makes a woody popping sound when it opens. Thinking it was Rosie, I didn't even think anything of it. I heard the door make contact and catch against the jamb without fully closing. I heard feet shuffle across the carpet. I felt Rosie climb the footboard of the bed and settle next to my hip. After a few moments of gently wiggling around, I felt it touch my thigh. And then I heard Rosie snore over the baby monitor. My heart stopped and I froze in terror. If she was downstairs in her room snoring, what was in my bed? Alarmed, I felt the wiggling in the bed again, fighting to keep my breathing deep and even so I wouldn't alert whatever it was that I was awake. It took me several minutes trying to convince myself that it was our dog before I was able to roll over and turn on my bedside lamp. Nothing. I was alone. I got up, I looked under the bed, I went downstairs and I checked on Rosie. She was sound asleep in her own bed and the dog was in my mother's room and they were both asleep. This is the first truly physical experience I've had in 15 years, and nothing strange has happened in this house prior. I don't know what to make of it. To keep myself from being afraid to sleep in my own bed at 37 years old, I've been telling myself that it was my dad's way of letting me know that he'd heard me. I wish he'd picked a less creepy way to try and comfort me. Jen from Minnesota, or ASC in Discord.
Thanks, Jen.
Ah.
Yeah. When you have that thing where like
At some point, I think he is. Yeah.
Yeah.
How else do you explain it?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, that's again just like like I like those stories like physical proof.
Yeah.
Of the paranormal.
I would prefer not
It's
physical
hard.
proof.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who are they playing?
I know. I still get creeped sometimes, like with the dogs and the bed.
It hasn't kicked off yet.
Something, and then like
It kicks off. Kicks off at 3, so like 3:15 probably.
like somebody, you know that feeling like when you're lying in bed and the blanket seems to shift on its own, like a sheet kind of like wasn't touching one part of your ankle, but now it is. It's so hard to just stay calm and be like, Lindsay, one of the dogs probably like went, and then it, or they moved their little paw just slightly, or you shifted. Because it's like, why would the blankets be moving?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
I know. I am thinking of like just having that experience or some similar experience where my mind now is just picturing like you and I in bed, laying there, and then and then the blanket starts just like pulling itself off of the bed like below us. It's like there would be no way to explain that or something like that other than the paranormal.
Yep. If
there's no breeze that does that, I mean,
No.
obviously you would feel it. There would be like a hurricane wind all of a sudden, like in your room, but there would be like no natural explanation.
You just turn a fan on, it just sucks the blankets off.
Yeah, leaves you just fine, sucks the blankets off.
Yeah. If I'm gonna have that kind of physical experience, I absolutely 1000% need you to be there.
Mm-hmm.
I do not want to experience that one on my own.
Yeah, me either.
Neither one of us have really truly had a for sure definitive paranormal experience. Well, you had the weird thing at the Rainbow Room, but even that, it's like you can't.
I know that my brain does go to with that one even like, well, maybe somebody just left the faucet on. And
it's like you're not always the most observant person.
Right. I thought I would notice that, but maybe I didn't. And it was weird that she said something, the waitress said something later and referenced that without me saying anything.
Right.
There's a lot of little elements, but that's not the same as what we just heard. It hasn't been that level.
I know. I'm hoping it stays the way it is.
I know. I go back and forth constantly.
I know. Our house is feeling pretty good.
It is.
Pretty good right now. I haven't been hearing the strange creaking from Kyler's room.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's keep it good.
I know. Oof. I got to keep up on my cleanses. I believe that the reason we haven't heard anything recently is that I like smoke cleansed the house and resalted all the doorways in the last couple of weeks. And it did feel better.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's placebo effect or otherwise, but I'll take it.
Yeah, either way, we'll take it.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's our plan here?
So let's thank our Annabelles. Let's get our spoopy shout outs out of the way.
Okay.
Not out of the way. Let's do them.
Wow, did he just like kind of shit on your guys' shout outs?
No, let's do those. And then and then we can like chat about the journey and have some cake.
Yeah, so if you feel like you've heard enough, once we finish the spoopy shout outs and the Annabelle shout outs, you can leave the show like you normally would. But if you'd like to hang out with us for a little bit, we are going to chat a little while just about how we got to 200 episodes of Scared to Death.
Yeah.
Just
staying around to see this cake we bring in here in a second is worth it alone. So
yeah,
I suggest don't go anywhere yet.
But yeah, if you're not into the banter, which everyone is not, you can feel free to exit whenever is a good time for you. If you're a Robert and Annabelle, you're already used to this format a little bit because this is more of what we do in a bonus episode. And if you're curious about the bonus content that we offer on Patreon, then also stick around and see what it's all about.
Exactly.
All right. Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
I can start.
Okay, go for it.
I want to thank the following Annabelles for helping us keep this show going. Carrie Gipple, Haley Reed, Honey Wright Smut.
I love that one.
Me too. Kaleo Kaanaka Ole. Chartimus, Maximus, Decimus, Rex.
My good God.
Rex Mathers, Roselle, Matthew Molina, Kimberly Bolton, and Chris Alexander.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank the following Annabelles for their support on Patreon and for 200 episodes. Sandy Roberts, Heather Duke, Kelly Kopiak, Zachary Stannard, Catherine Como, Amanda Orth, Lasonia Bush, Jay, and that's Jae, Shannon Lowry, and Nora Sandlin. And then I have a few swoopy shout outs to Daniel, aka Bruno, from your ex-wife she said it's like banana Shanna, from your ex-wife Shanna.
Aw.
A huge and nimrodical and spoopy birthday to the best ex-husband and baby daddy. You're a wonderful dad and the best husband, husband I ever had. You mean a lot to us and you're never alone.
Aw,
That's really sweet.
that is,
That gives me
yeah.
hope for other divorced couples.
Yeah.
To Emma from John, happy birthday. To Mr. Lady from Lady, happy anniversary, Jesse. I love you and your giant beard. Our boys are lucky to have you. To Cherry from Rex, happy belated birthday. And to Delia from Delia, happy birthday. She said there was no way that her husband Felix was going to remember to give her a shout out, so she had to take care of it herself, which I get. I really get.
All right. Yeah.
I'm not getting any shout outs on this show for my husband either.
Well, thanks everybody for the support and the shout outs. And do you wanna get the cake in here first?
Yeah, let's
And then we can chat while we're having some cake.
Let's have cake.
Let's see this amazing cake that is supposed to be a replica of this book, I guess, that
We're
Logan and
bringing
Kate
that
got.
in right here in a sec. We're lighting the.
Oh,
candles.
cool. Okay, while they light it, yeah. What a cool thing that we made it to 200 episodes. Yeah, we're just so thankful that so many of you have decided to join the ride, to stick around the ride. It's interesting to think that it's been almost 4 years.
I know.
You know, since we started doing this. 4 years ago, this was just a dream, something that we were kind of conceptualizing, working on behind the scenes.
Well, even more than that, it's longer before that, because like when you started Time Suck, you know, and we got into podcasting. Okay.
Here we go. Here we go.
Great. Okay, here it comes, guys.
Oh, nice.
Okay, we're gonna put it on a platform.
Yep.
You can push against that if you need to.
Okay, perfect. Oh, that is a very cool looking cake.
Look at that.
Oh my God, I can't believe like how much it looks like the book.
That's sick.
That's insane.
Did we decide not to desecrate it with candles?
Oh, here come the candles. That is crazy. We gotta take a pic. Did you guys take a picture of it already? Okay.
Yeah, we got.
Okay, great.
Some,
Great.
Video and some footage.
That is really, really, really cool.
That art, the art of like people who design, cakes to look like things, is so impressive.
Here, I'll try to hit your cam and get the.
What?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's sick.
That is so cool.
I noticed they even got the rip in the spine. Like if you compare it to your book, right down like above the O.
Yeah.
It's just like the little details they did.
Amazing.
That's
Amazing.
a much smarter way to do it. Thank you, Tyler.
Oh, well done. We
Good
got the
job,
200
teamwork.
candles.
Look at that.
And I'm pretty sure these guys are fans. It's Celebration Sweet Boutique in Spokane Valley.
Oh, that's very cool. They seem to know about it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Very, very cool.
When do you guys want to close the door?
Yeah, we're so. Oh, we're not gonna light them.
No, we're just looking at it.
Oh, okay.
Our two broke right as we were coming in.
Oh no!
Oh no!
So we had to fix that.
Okay, so they were lighting it. Yeah, we're lucky to have a lot of like fans in the area. It is cool. Like, I was in the little Olympia, the little Greek restaurant here in town the other day. And they got some fans that work there that were so nice. Best lemon, yeah, that lemon orzo chicken soup, that Greek soup, so good. Fans at Pilgrims and a variety of the coffee shops around town. Yeah, it's cool. It's like seeing like friends when you go out to do stuff.
Well, it's nice,
at
just
that.
like community building.
That looks beautiful. That looks beautiful.
Happy 200th episodes
So
to us.
should we do like almost like a wish or something?
Okay, do you want to wish for 100 more episodes?
Yeah, let's wish for.
Oh no, you're not supposed to say it out loud.
Oh man,
I just
okay.
ruined it.
I'll wish for something.
I'll
then.
wish for something
You don't
else.
even know.
Okay.
Okay, one,
I know what
2,
you're wishing
3.
for.
Okay.
I know what you wished for. It has
Awesome.
nothing to do with Scared to Death.
We'll have some cake right after the show, so we're not eating on the microphone.
Because nobody likes that.
True, but I'm excited to dig in. Is it chocolate, Logan?
I actually don't know what they did. I think we went. What did you? Yeah,
I don't
it's whatever
remember.
you suggested.
Okay, chocolate. I think.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's chocolate.
Yum.
If Dan picked, it's chocolate.
Yep.
Yeah.
But you were saying
but
that, this was when Time Suck started. This was an idea.
So just like way back in the day, for anybody who doesn't already know the story, just very briefly, Dan and I moved up to Coeur d'Alene to be with the kids.
Yeah.
Kyler wanted to live with us. We didn't want to raise the kids separately.
Mm-hmm.
A variety of things. We were like, okay, we'll go. Stand up was a little stagnant.
Yeah.
And it would. Not everybody was podcasting yet. It wasn't what it is now.
A lot of comics were, but it wasn't. It was nothing like it is now.
Nothing. I mean, there was Joe Rogan, and that was kind of like it. And people were like, "What's a podcast?" They didn't understand. And Dan conceptualized Time Suck, and at that time he said, my dream, my goal is that it would be a 3-headed snake, and there will be the analytical piece of it, which would be Time Suck, and then there would be a horror element to it, which would be Scared to Death. It was unnamed, and then there would be a more improv type show, and that would be Is We Dumb,
which was a blast. Yeah,
yeah, it was a great show.
Had all three going for what 2 years, I believe. Yeah, 2 years.
Yeah, I don't remember.
All three shows were with the pandemic stuff. When I wasn't touring as much, I was able to keep like
You were doing 5 shows then, because you were doing Time Suck, Secret Suck, Scared to Death, Is We Dumb,
and Incredible Feats.
Which was a Parcast Spotify original.
It was nonstop podcasting.
But
yeah, but we had our 3-headed snake here. Secret Suck is the Patreon. Time Suck, I guess
companion piece.
Thank you,
Yeah,
companion
you're welcome.
podcast. But yeah, it was so fun, and I'm so glad we've kept the 2 heads going. And really, we still have 3 with the Secret. But I mean, yeah,
and there might be more stuff, new stuff to come down the pipe.
We're talking about stuff in the background all the time.
Yeah, I mean, we're always just like a little like peek behind the curtain. I think I can share these things.
Yeah,
we didn't pre-discuss this, but it's like there's the business, right? Like there is the creative side of it, and there's the business side of it, and you're always trying to make your peace with art and commerce, and it is tricky because at the end of the day, everyone in this family at Bad Magic, like our core staff, we're all creative people, and it is hard to find that balance. When you have a successful show, a really interesting thing happens that people reach out and they want to do other things with you. So like behind the scenes, on top of this, on top of touring and building new stand-up hours and raising a family and just trying to like be normal humans, we've been very quietly working on a possible animated version of Scared to Death, which is something that we want to do so badly. It would be so cool. It's just a matter of finding time. The guy that we've been working with is a fan, is so fucking talented.
Been in the industry a long time.
Yep, really. And just like a good human. We just met with him last week, and he's been waiting on stuff from us for months. And we're like, I'm sorry, we keep thinking we're going to get to it. It's just like everybody else. It's like, just like you think you're going to get to that home project, just like you think you're going to,
I'm going to go watch some soccer. I'll talk to y'all later.